Hi and welcome to the Active Code podcast, brought to you by Aspire Active Partnerships. I'm Paul Griffiths and joining me each week on the pod is Luke Johnson.
Aspire Active Partnerships is a community of like-minded business leaders who all believe that collaboration in the sports coaching and children's activity sector is essential for success. We've proven that working in collaboration does benefit business growth and essentially helps more children be more active more often.
To combat physical inactivity, we need organisations that are performing at their very best. Organisations will only operate to high standards if they are led well. So, if we can focus on developing high quality leaders throughout an organisation, not just at the top, customers will experience higher quality services, which means heightened enjoyment levels and increased levels of physical activity. And if we do this at an early age, we know that we can build the foundations for a more active, happier and healthier life. The Active Code investigates what it really takes to be a successful leader and how organisations can combat physical inactivity.
We won't be alone through this journey. We are joined by business owners and experts from our sector, as well as inspirational people from outside our industry. We'll understand the importance of physical activity to our guests, reflect on leadership experiences, and gain thought-provoking insights on how we can crack the Active Code and get more children more active more often. If you like what you hear, please leave us a rating and subscribe wherever you get your pods.
Mitchell, welcome to the Active Code podcast.
Amazing, thank you for having me.
No problem at all. To start with, could you tell the listeners a bit more about your professional journey to date?
Came out of school, didn't really know what I wanted to do, sort of fell into a PEA level, and my sort of love for coaching took off from there, really. Obviously, at the time, there wasn't a lot of funding in sort of primary PE sports, so I was just doing a lot of volunteering, working in retail, sort of sports wardening at local community centres. Then got offered a chance to come work for Progressive Sports. That started off part-time, sort of 5 hours a week, just sort of doing after-school clubs. And then managed to build that to full time. So I made some really good relationships with a couple of my schools and sort of won PPA contracts, things like that. Off the back of that, I got a leadership role in the business. So I headed up our sort of toddler group and baby group and our football community group. And that went really, really well. Obviously got the attendees up and a real sort of introduction to sort of to leadership, which is really good. And then off the back of that, as the business grew, we needed an operations manager. So I applied for that role, got the role. I sat in that seat for 18 months and it was a real eye-opener for me, just in terms of structures and procedures that need to be in place, like just basic things like annual leave, like how what does that look like? How does that impact our customers? And within that role, I sort of developed my passion for relationship building and getting out and seeing people and having conversations and developing that rapport. And then, we just got to a point where we were sort of stagnated. So we needed to go and get new business. And that's when the business development role came up, which I'm in now, and made a couple of notes of things I'm quite proud of. Just we've doubled the revenue in the last 12 months. That's obviously not solely down to me, but that's my department. So I'm really proud of that. Put a load of new structures in place, like the customer journey mapping, and just how to effectively delegate and what does that look like. So it's not just this is the task, get on with it. That's my sort of career to date. Just sort of fell out of school, didn't know what to do, and I'm here now.
Brilliant. Doubling revenue over the last 12 months is brilliant, especially from the past 24 months that we've all experienced. Really, really, really good achievement.
What'd you put that down to, Mitchell?
For me, on a personal note, I think it's my ability to build relationships. I've built relationships with some really sort of key stakeholders, and across our partner school network, we've got a couple of influential head teachers. And if our relationship with those head teachers wouldn't have been as good as they were, I don't think we'd have potentially got the opportunities. And then for other areas of the business, I think we just recruited really smartly. We got the right people in the right, and we got them sat in the right seats, which is really, really important. So before we just sort of say, oh yeah, we've got a coach in, he'll go into that school, we've got that work. Whereas actually now we say, okay, we've got this school, what's their ethos? And I think to one of our schools, which is quite influential in the area, they're a champion learner school. And we lost that contract about 3 years ago because we just put anybody in there. when actually you need a champion learner coach to go in there, because what they want in comparison to a school just down the road, which is quite a deprived area, is a different sort of mentality and approach. So it's sort of the leadership team here has worked really, really hard, and just some real smart recruitment as well.
And what does that structure look like, Mitchell, in the organisation?
So we try and resemble everything we do to a school. So we've got a senior leadership team. So Chris and Pete, who sit above me, are sort of our head teachers. Myself and James does operations, I do business development. We're sort of deputy heads. And then below us, we've got like a middle leadership team. So if you think about that, head of Key Stage 2, head of Key Stage 1, and they head up different programs for us. So trying to reflect what schools do, and it just makes it more relatable. So when we go in and say, oh, we've got a senior leadership team, here's the heads, here's the middles, I think then schools can relate to us, and it helps. We're not just another set of guys and girls in blue night tracksuits coming in to do lunchtime clubs. We're a bit more of a professional outfit.
And before we move on as well, you mentioned about the relationship building as being key to that. And you talked about customer journey mapping.
Yeah.
So what in particular, is it a case of that you were always good on the relationship building side of things as an organisation, and then decided to do the customer journey mapping, which has enhanced it? Or was it the customer journey mapping was embedded, which has then raised everything up?
I think it's a mixture of the both. So I deal with our partner school network, so I know I'm really good at relationship building and being relatable to whether I'm going to meet a PE lead or a head teacher. I'm quite good at altering who I am, still being myself, but just altering the pitch or the level. Whereas, especially some of the other leadership team and our sort of middle leaders who head up they didn't have a clue. So what we did is I said, okay, you put yourself in the shoes of a PE coordinator. You're going in and wanting to deliver maths on the move. What does that PE coordinator want? What does their journey look like from the first inquiry on the website or the first phone call? What does that look like till the end of year one when they've had a full year service? What does that look like? And do we treat customers differently depending on whether they do a full day or an afternoon or a morning or just an hour a week? So for me, I sort of already had that in my head, but especially for sort of some of the people around me and the leaders reporting to me, I think that customer journey mapping has really helped their sort of their roles to take off.
And did you struggle to get in the shoes of the customer? We did a recent activity at Aspire with some of our partners, and I think the challenge was getting people to think from the customer's perspective. And for a lot of people, that might sound really quite simple, but when you're in the business day to day, it's quite often difficult to switch it around, isn't it?
Yeah, so I think I'm quite lucky because I've been in sort of education since I was 16, so 12 years now. Being a head teacher or a PE coordinator, I found it quite easy, but putting myself in the shoes of a parent who wants a half day because they only work 9 to 11 and they don't want to pay the full day price at our active camp. So sort of trying to put myself in their shoes, and especially everything we've been through last 18 months financially. So COVID and stuff like that, having to issue refunds and just trying to say, yeah, we're a business and we need to make a profit, but why are we there? Why do the parents use us? So that's probably been the challenging one, but we get there, and there's still times today somebody will ask for a refund because of this or that or the other, and you've just got to think, okay, if it was me, what would I want that business to react like, and then what is the effect of that? If I give a £20 refund, are they then going to book 6 days in the summer, which is worth more to us than just that one day in a February half term?
During the pod, Mitchell, we focus on the importance of physical activity and what leaders and organisations can do to get more children more active more often. On a personal level, what does physical activity mean to you?
For me, it's really simple. I think it's healthy mind, healthy body. And I always put healthy mind first, because I think if your mindset's not right, then the benefits you get from physical activity and how it helps you in your day-to-day life and just you as a person, if your mind's not right, then your body's not going to be right. And I actually watched quite an interesting TED talk. I don't know who the speaker was, but she was just talking about how we all know the benefits to physical activity. It makes us live longer. We can fight diseases, and all the benefits, all the dopamine releases that we get. But why don't we do it? And for me, that's where that mental barrier comes in. So I think if you've got a healthy mind and you've got your mindset right, which especially again, we mentioned it a couple times now, the last 18 months, 2 years, how tough that's been on us all. If your mind's not right, then your body's not going to be right. So, yeah, I think it's always worth, I always mention sort of healthy mind, healthy body, and that's what we try and embody as an organisation when we go in and do PE lessons. It's that getting the mindset right first, and then the rest will follow.
In terms of keeping yourself active, Mitchell, what kind of things do you get up to?
So until I become a father, I'd play football a couple times a week and things like that. So at the moment, not a lot, which isn't good. And it's something, again, when I said about that healthy mind, I think, all right, I need to get out running again, or I need to go and do something. And then because my mindset's not right, it's cold, it's wet. I'll go tomorrow. I'll go at midday when it's a bit sunnier. So I walk every day, which I think is really important, and especially I try to go first thing or last thing at night to just sort of reset or start the day right. So at the moment, I don't do a lot, which I know that I need to change, and I know the benefits of changing. So refer to my previous point is why don't I just do it? There's other factors, but yeah, I'm a keen footballer. I love playing, love coaching it. So there's a lot of that, but yeah, just at the moment, it's just sort of daily walks.
And you go swimming with the little one as well. That counts.
Yeah. No, I do. We have to take it in turns though. Obviously, still regulation. So it's every other week swimming on a Sunday.
And what type of benefits do you see in your work life from having that healthy mind, healthy body approach in your day-to-day work? Do you notice a difference when you're on track and you're having those, positive thoughts about activity?
Yeah, I'm far more productive. So if I've gone for a walk first thing and jump in the car and get to work, I'm far more productive that morning. Whereas if I've got up a bit late and mindset's not right and I'm rushing to get in and sit there, and then your mind's not on the task and what you need to get done. Whereas if I've had that walk, I feel fresh. So I'm just far more productive when I'm active and I'm doing the right things.
Is that something that's kind of embedded through the organisation as well?
For the children, potentially not so much for the coaches. We've got our mission statement, which is obviously to inspire and engage children into physical activity. And I don't think we do anything exclusively for the coaches, but maybe something we should look at.
Potentially some walking meetings.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, I've seen a lot of that on LinkedIn. So yeah, it's a good idea.
In terms of when you're working with the children, like you said, you do it in community settings on your camps, you're working in schools as well. I'm sure you've come across children that aren't as passionate as sport or activity as you might be, having that football background. How do you and your team engage with those children and motivate them to take part and to value physical activity?
For us, I think it's a lot about breaking down barriers and accessibility. So if I take an after-school club, for example, it could be cost. If it's a community event or an active camp, it could be mum doesn't drive, can't get us there. So we look at the different ways to sort of break down barriers. And then it comes down to the individual building that relationship with that child, and just building that rapport. Because if you've got that, then it helps then to get them engaged and inspired. And I think one of the biggest things about sort of physical education in school, I think sometimes we get so caught up in PESPA, in what are they actually learning, and what's the gross motor skill, what's the fine motor skill, what's this, what's that. And actually it needs to be fun and engaging, because once you get a child engaged, the rest will follow. You'll be able to get across your key learning points in physical education. So yeah, for us, it's breaking down those barriers, find out what are those barriers. Is it an SEND problem? Is it accessibility? Is it financial? Break down that, build that rapport and that relationship, and then usually helps with the engagement. If not, sometimes it's a bit of a deeper level, and it's then building relationships with those other key stakeholders or the key adults in their lives. Maybe see what's going on at home. Is it dad plays video games and hates football and doesn't like sport, and is that the role model? Can we put somebody in the school who can be that role model for that child? So yeah, lots of different things, but I think it just comes to breaking down barriers.
I think it's a really good point. I think it's a point that's often overlooked as well, Mitchell, and it kind of comes back down to that customer journey mapping that we discussed earlier, because you're saying they're understanding the barriers, but you've got to think from the child's perspective, from the parent's point of view, from the teacher's perspective, and that's where I think a lot of the time it gets overlooked. People just assume that this program will work because it's been done in the past, or X program will work because I think it will work. There's no actual. We've spoken in the pod with a few other guests around kind of really asking the right questions and then listening. And if we do that, then we know what the barriers are, and then we create the solutions to solve those problems and overcome those barriers. So that's a really, really good point. I think is often overlooked, that we need to really make sure that we're fully focused on.
Yeah, that the listening element is, again, we've got Pete who does our performance, goes out and does the observations, and a lot of the focus this year, obviously on PESPA, is what are they actually learning, what they get from it. And sometimes you just need to listen, be quiet, listen to what the children are telling you, and then you pitch and dictate your lesson from there. So like any good sort of session plan or PE lesson, it's a draft, isn't it? Sometimes middle lesson, you've got to rip it up and go with where the children are leading you sometimes.
Yeah. Enjoyment's key. Otherwise, they're not going to learn, are they? And certainly not going to continue doing that activity if they're not enjoying whatever is being taught or delivered in that school in particular. So enjoyment really is key on that side. Today's pod, we wanted to focus on the holiday activity and food program, the HAF program, as a lot of people know. And we know you've done a fair bit on this since the HAF program was launched, and we thought it'd be useful to get you on and talk about that in a bit more detail. So initially, what was your motivation to get involved in the HAF program, Mitchell?
Being really honest, I was one of the children that the HAF program targets. I was one of those children growing up. Unfortunately, from a low-income household, I was really fortunate. My mum worked several jobs, and I never wanted for anything. I didn't miss out on anything, but I always had that feeling of like, can I ask to go to football, or should I bring this fly home because I know I might not be able to afford it at the moment. So I was part of that sort of demographic growing up, and I was really fortunate and really, really lucky, because my mum worked really, really hard and provided everything for us. But when it came about, and also I was watching what Marcus Rashford did through the pandemic, it really inspired and engaged me. And a lot of work that I do for Progressive at the moment is sort of mentoring and working with those children from a bit of a deprived background. And that's where I get the most buzz out of it. So that's initially the motivation and what engaged me in the programme. And then it sort of went from there, which I guess we'll talk about in a minute.
And the programme itself, you've delivered it across the Bristol region? Where you operate?
So Bristol and South Gloucestershire. So we've got two different LAs in the area. So our approaches with the approach on both of them are very different. So Bristol, for example, only give out money to charities and certain school setting education, whereas South Gloucester are a little bit more lenient, and they try and target businesses and put some of that money back into the local community. So it's interesting how every LA across the UK do things differently.
Yeah, I think from our experience and other organisations that we talk to, I think it's a common trend, isn't it? It's very much kind of one authority, pretty flexible, really focused on getting as many children engaged as possible and not making it too difficult for schools or organisations to access that funding. And others, there seems to be far too many hoops to jump through, which obviously we have to jump through hoops because it's government funded, but sometimes makes it very, very difficult for people to even engage in getting the funding to run a programme. And then obviously the challenge is getting the children engaged in the programme. So it could be a lot easier. Let's go into a bit more detail on those two examples you've given there. So so the Bristol Authority, for example, so you've got schools that I'm assuming want to access HAF in that area.
Yeah.
But there's a little bit of a barrier there because you're not a charity. So how did you overcome that and work with schools in the Bristol area?
So one of our schools, which I believe has got the highest pupil premium in Bristol, they applied for a pot of funding and got us in just to deliver the camp. So they paid us a daily rate per member of staff. And then they did it that way. They dealt with all the food, all the paperwork, and we just sort of sent an invoice in and delivered our camp. And then another school, which is really close to the border, they applied for some funding and then they paid per pupil to come per day. So they identified the children they'd like to send. And then again, we booked them on using our South Gloucestershire half sort of set up, but obviously invoice the school then directly. So they're the only two examples that I can call upon, because it's been really difficult to do anything else in Bristol, just because again we're not a charity, and we're not a primary school or a secondary school, so we haven't been able to access it. We just you send that offer information, and it just say it's not applicable to apply for this funding.
And have you spoke to people from Bristol with regards to like the impact you've had and the work that you're doing with those schools?
Yeah, so we've sent some sort of testimonials to the school, who have then sent off on our behalf and looked at the data, and we've provided sort of impact reports, but we don't have any direct contact with the I don't know who it is, the half leader in Bristol. I believe it's been passed around a couple of times. So I know there was a man leading up initially, but I've not had any direct contact, and I don't know who leads it now. And
the other authority, obviously a little bit more easier to engage, more numbers. So
yeah,
tell us how that works.
Yeah, so with that one, it's a bit of a backstory to that. Obviously, at the start of the pandemic, it's a really funny story. It was myself, Chris, and then Simon and Abby, which are two local head teachers. And they sort of called an emergency meeting the day after, I think, Boris made his announcement that we were going to lockdown the following week. And we were stood in the playground about 10 metres apart, sort of shouting to each other, having a meeting. And Abby and Simon actually recommended us to local authority to provide childcare when schools couldn't, or during the holidays. And it all really started from there, really. So I built a really good relationship with Andrew at the LA, who's the head of education and strategic lead. And it sort of just snowballed from there, really. And I think the biggest thing which sort of opened the door of South Gloss, and why I think it's so easy, is that we opened up over the May bank holiday. So we opened up on the bank holiday Friday, the Monday, and over the weekend. And it was one of the highest peaks of infections and hospitalisation rates. And we were sort of the key hub for NHS staff, and we looked after the children, so the doctors and nurses could go in. And I think our flexibility and our willingness to roll our sleeves up and do that has made the relationship so easy in the South Gloss area.
In terms of the delivery of the camps, Mitchell, when they're underway, were there any initial headaches that you had to get through?
Yeah, initially food was a real problem, because obviously the DfE guidance that it should be a hot meal, and it just initially really struggled with that. So we partnered with a sort of a larger national company to deliver our food, and they were great in some respects in terms of the ease of booking everything and getting everything delivered. But they'd either deliver to each venue individually, which was then quite a hefty cost, because at some venues you might only have 5 or 6 half attendees there, and you have to pay a full delivery charge. So we got it all delivered to our head office, but then actually packing all the lunch boxes and then driving them out was a real headache, because lunches were getting there late. Children wouldn't have snacks or water until about 11 o'clock. So it just didn't work. And obviously the safe storage of food as well. So if we're going to get it the day before, how do we store it safely? The food hygiene qualifications. So that was a real big headache for us, and still is, if I'm honest, because the DfE obviously pushing hot meals, and then there's even more guidance around hot meals, how long they can last for, serving them. That's the real big headache. Another one is just the safeguarding side of things. Obviously, a lot of the children who do access to funding have a lot of ACEs, and it's tracking things that happen at our camps and passing those to the right people so it can be logged. There's a thing in school at the moment, CPOMs, which I don't know if you've heard of, but it's just logging incidences, and like social workers can have access to it, mums and dads, schools, and it sort of builds a map for that child. So it's having the South Gloss were amazing with it. There's a lady there who heads up, and she's been really good at helping us. But initially things were happening, and we're thinking, if this is part of a larger picture of behaviour, a pattern of behaviour, somebody needs to know, but who is it? If we just pass it on to mum at the end of the day, is it going to be picked up back at school? Is it going to fester? Is it going to happen again at the next sort of camp? So those were the two biggest headaches for us initially when opening the programme.
Just on that point, did you have to put in extra support in terms of the number of people on those camps, or any specific mentors or support staff to help with that behaviour need?
Yeah, so we sort of ripped up our active camp the way we did things. So for years and years, we just did one bubble of 15, second bubble of 15, split on age groups. That came in really handy when the pandemic first started for sort of cleaning and hygiene, and that was fine. But we've obviously gone from some camps to having 20 a day to up to 60 to 80 a day. So we've had to sort of look at it, do things. So what we try to do is we have a lead coach, and that lead coach acts as that mentor or that person. So if there are any first aid instances or safeguarding concerns, that person picks that up. And just the procedure around bookings and data, because obviously the DfE require how many BMAE pupils attend, how many free school meals, who's got SEND, who's a looked after child, those sorts of things. So that coach on site is accountable for that and collects that data or reports those issues to our safeguarding lead, who then deals with the local authority accordingly.
And what does a day on your half camp look like? What type of activities do the children get to do? So
we try and do it child led. So we've got a couple of football only camps, and we're looking at some other sports. But a general active camp is based around multi sports. So we'll have a theme of the day. So sometimes that could be summer, spring, and autumn. So if you come in on a summer day, we do some summer sports in the morning, maybe tennis, cricket, athletics. And then in the afternoon, it's very much child-led. So we'll have a list of activities on the board that children want to take part in. And then one part of the afternoon, there'll be 3 or 4 activities set up. The children can float between, and the coaches will lead those activities. And then towards the end of the day, we'll pick one sort of main thing that everybody wants to do. We'll deliver that. And then there's sort of a bit of golden time at the end of the day before we do sort of a celebration assembly, just to celebrate any successes throughout the day.
Sounds great. How many children have you engaged, Mitchell, since you've been running the half camps?
Just half children or in total?
Yeah, half, just through the half programs. Or sorry, you're saying children in total on the half programs?
Yeah.
I'm assuming you'll get some children who aren't free school meal children.
Yeah. So we put the half children alongside the parent paid.
Right,
they're all sort of mixed in. So
I'm going to put you on the spot, but if you can give us really
so it started last Easter, and we had 4 venues, 15 children a day. So that's 60. Probably say guess work 5,000 to 10,000.
Right. Okay.
Sometimes that's repeat. So one child come in for all 8 days. But in terms of like funded places, I'd say around about 8,000 roughly, because we did it over the summer and Christmas as well.
Awesome. And from a standing start, obviously, with half not being around a couple of years ago, to get to that number is great.
Yeah.
What impact? It's going a bit deep on the impact now. So obviously, you collate lots of data because it's a DfE funded program. We need to show the impact of that funding. So what impact have you seen on the local community following the delivery of the HAP programme today?
So in terms of local community, we partnered with a couple of local caterers. So the money that we got for food just goes back into local community. And one of the caterers we use, Bromley Tea Rooms, I want to sort of give a massive shout out to Bromley Tea Rooms and to Kerry, who packs all the food and does all the food for us. They took over a local cafe in the area, and it was just your generic, full English, chicken nuggets, chips and beans. And they've tried to turn that round so it's really healthy. So they still do chicken nuggets, but it's with carrot sticks and lentils and things like that. So the money that we've been able to give to them through the funding has really helped them, and is a real sort of hub for local community now. And it means that during term time, they can potentially make their prices a bit cheaper and more affordable, because we all know healthier food sometimes can be more pricier for parents. So that's worked really well. It's really helped strengthen our relationship, not only with schools, but with the children in those schools. And one story that always sort of sticks in my mind, which I put on our first ever impact report, is there's a little boy that I worked one-to-one with for a couple of years now, and I'm his key adult in school. I ran a lunchtime club on a Friday at our school, and we did archery, and he came flying out of the school hall, and he was like, Mr. Quirke, we did archery at Holiday Club, didn't we? Oh yeah, no, look, you hold at this, your non-right hand goes here, 2 hands go on the bow. So he got up, he demonstrated, and then he was actually helping some of the younger children who were struggling with their technique. And it was just, again, I've worked with him for years. He's never come to any of our active camps, and the impact on his life there, now back in school, and having that structure in the holidays, which he really needs. He really struggles when there's not structure. It's been invaluable really for him and to watch him grow. And that's just one, just for me. Obviously, we've got 6 camps across Bristol and South Gloucestershire. There must be hundreds of those stories. I think that, for me, that has to be the biggest impact that we've had, is just making it inclusive and accessible for everybody.
And what does the future look like from that side, Mitchell, in terms of like HAF programs and provision in the South Gloucester and Bristol area?
Yeah, so South Gloucester are making a couple of tweaks. Again, the DFE are really pushing the hot meals. So I'm working with Nikki, who's our contact there, to see what we can do. And she's quite on board of us. She wants us to sort of use local caterers, but obviously that comes with its own headaches, because we could just get a big sort of national company in who could potentially do it for cheaper. But is the money going where it's needed to go? And is it going to make the right impact? But moving forward, we've applied for our Easter funding. We know that it's there for the summer and for Christmas, and then beyond that, not sure really what the future will look like.
And to help those people that are either delivering a HAF at the moment or are looking to deliver the HAF program and support their local communities, what's gone wrong in the last couple of years since you started delivering HAF, and how have you overcome those mistakes maybe that you've made to improve that provision going forward?
So I think the biggest mistakes we made is when it came about in the Easter, a lot of local authorities said, we'll wait till summer and we'll get everything in place, whereas South Gloss and Bristol were quite keen to get it going at Easter, and we sort of just jumped in with 2 feet and didn't really do our research. So when it came to submitting the data, I'm then having to make hundreds and hundreds of phone calls to get their background, what school they're from, what criteria do they fit into. Also, with booking as well, we initially put the HAF booking up on our website. Everybody logs on, sees a free active camp and books on, and we're not allowed to question. So that was a really big headache, because we then had no idea if the funding was hitting the right people. And I just think the biggest one is to do your research, speak to other companies who have delivered. How do they source their food? How they tweak their safeguarding policy? How do they collect their data? And the only other big piece of advice, I know a lot of other companies do it, is I hate the fact that some companies segregate the HAF children. So they have a HAF only site. So they say, we're going to open up a HAF only site down the road of this school, and all the HAF children there can go there. When for me, that's not really the point. It's about the HAF fund is there to make it inclusive for everybody. So if all of a sudden I go to one school and Luke, you go to another school, and you can go to the one at our school, but I have to go down the road to the other one because it's the free one, it is that stigma attached to it. So just make it really, really inclusive. I think that's probably the biggest piece of advice I could give.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point as well, because from our experience locally, so what Birmingham did really well, so Street Games are commissioned to run the Birmingham project. And in the summer of last year, they decided that it was open access. So they funded all places. Mm-hmm. So there was no kind of segregation, if you like, from those children on free school meals and those that weren't, which was a really, really good move, and a move that meant that they had success during the summer. How that looks going forward, I don't know. I'd like to think that they've seen the impact and the fact that a lot of children have engaged, and obviously it's a bit of a guesswork with regards to the percentage of those children that do attend that are free school meals, that are eligible for the funding. But I thought it was a great move by Street Games / Birmingham City Council to make sure that it was fully inclusive and every child in the city, no matter what their background, could access it. And we've got to remember as well that still in the summer of last year, we were still under some restrictions as well. So a lot of parents are still working from home as well. So what the HAF program also did was give parents a little bit of time to do their work as well, which is really important. I had a couple of conversations with someone at a school, it's about 4 or 5 parents that we spoke to, and all of them were working parents that just found it a godsend that they had the opportunities to access the HAF program at their child's school for that period of time. So it had so many impacts on the local community. So yeah, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
With regards to collating the data, how have you done that, and has that changed over the last 18 months? So
yeah, initially it was just a Google sheet. So again, we put it on our website, very quickly took that down. So we've made it invite only on our website, so parents can only access the HAF by contacting me first to get the book in. And then all we ask for is just sort of in the tagline of a text message or an email or a phone call, just to mention the HAF program to reference it. So initially it was just Google sheet, name, parent name, contact detail, food selection, photo consent, just the sort of generic any health or nutrition things that we need to know about. And it's sort of evolved now. So sort of I've got a bit of a platform on sort of Google Sheets where we've got all the menus loaded up. It's automatic. It tracks what school they're coming from. So it basically all spits out into a report at the end. So yeah, another key piece of advice is just invest some time into put something together that does the work for you. So then at the end, all you're doing is just making sure, okay, these children attended, these were the schools, and it maps it all out for you in nice charts. And so it took a long time to get that up. But that works really well. And a class for kids we use for booking. And that's really, really useful because you can pull off the raw data and just then get a list of children's names, school, and potentially any other information you need. That works really, really well.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing those tips for those that are looking to do HAF or are ready that want to improve their processes.
Yeah.
If listeners wanted to enhance their leadership skills and business, what 3 books, podcasts, or people would you recommend?
Yeah, I really had to think about this one. I'm not a big reader, so I've listened to a couple of audiobooks, but very quickly get disengaged. So I've got a couple of sort of people in podcasts which I listen to. So the first one for me is Jordan Peterson. I know sometimes he can come across a little bit controversial and inflammatory, but for me, his message of you need to know yourself, you need to know the environment around you, and just for me, it helped me really sort of a bit of self-discovery. So if I don't understand the shoes I'm walking in, the shoes other people are walking in, and what people are going on around me, how can I affect change, or how can I be a good leader at all? So yeah, I really love listening to him, and I quite like his delivery style. So he'd be one I'd recommend. Another one would be Stephen Bartlett, The Diary of a CEO. I'm a little bit addicted at the moment, so I'll pop my AirPods in when it's bed or bath time with little man. And then what I quite like is the sort of anecdotal stories and the stories of the successful business, because everybody thinks success is a straight vertical line, and you start here, you start A, you finish at B, and it's smooth sailing, but it's really, really not. You don't see the 3 failed businesses before from the Gymshark owner. You don't see the things they've had to overcome, the seats they've had to sit in, and the challenges. So yeah, I really enjoy listening to that one. And then the last one for me is quite personal. I quite like Eddie Hearn, No Passion, No Point. Very similar to sort of Stephen Bartlett, but probably a little bit more relatable for me. Just looks at like high performing people. So he's had sort of Anthony Joshua on there, Patrice Evra, so people that I can sort of relate to in the sporting industry. And again, looking at Patrice Evra, a lot of people say, oh, well, AJ come from a tough background and Patrice Evra didn't have a great upbringing, but they go into it and they look at the barriers, and it makes me think that through the HAF program, is there a future Anthony Joshua or a Premier League footballer who, because we've removed those barriers and we get them infused and get them engaged and we provide them opportunities. And I just find Eddie Hearn a really good character as well. So quite engaging for me, somebody who's not a massive reader, can pick out some really good points from that.
Amazing. It's been really good, Mitchell, to hear about the impact you've had in your community. You said over 8,000 children engaged in less than a year, really, which is incredible. The growth, progressive. So you said you doubled your revenue which again is amazing. And the impact you've had in the local community in terms of individual children, but also, like you mentioned, the local food providers that have actually changed their offer because of the support you've been able to give them. And making physical activity inclusive for all children, which is absolutely amazing. You should be really, really proud of that. Just finally, if listeners wanted to connect or get in touch, what's the best way of doing that?
Probably just going onto our website, so just progressivesports.co.uk. We're part of a larger national franchise, so we be the Bristol and South Gloucestershire franchise. So they can just click onto that one, and my contact details are all on the website, and we've got a little form as well. So if they're interested in anything in particular, they can come into us.
Great stuff. I think it's also worth mentioning, Mitch, as well. It's been great to listen to your journey as well. I think it's been really good to hear that, from a 16-year-old. I mean, he's still pretty young, let's be honest. But that's a very short space of time from a 16-year-old doing voluntary work, and we spoke about that before in previous pods with the importance of that from a sporting context, but the impact that can have on your skill set, on your confidence, on your self-esteem, and how you've found a role, by the sound of it, that really suits your skill set and your attitude and what you believe in. And it's great to hear somebody talk about really understanding the customer side of things and following that customer journey. And you talked about delegating briefly at the start. But for me, the key there is just that relationship building. I mean, everything you've spoke about in the last 45 minutes has been the importance of relationship building. And that's something that I think a lot of people can take away from this, which often gets overlooked because it's a very simple thing, let's be honest. And that's not undermining any of the work that you're doing. But I think a lot of people think, building relationships is really easy. We just need to have a conversation. It's job done. But there's so much more, as you know, that goes into that. So, I just want to say thank you and keep up the great work. I think it's great to go back to the start of the pandemic and the work that you did with the NHS locally and the staff. You kind of put your hand up and said, we can help. And it just shows you by doing that, you put yourself in a bit of a challenging situation, no doubt, during that period. And it's probably very tough, but you've come from it, and look at where the organisation is now and the success it's had. So keep doing what you're doing. It's really, really, really
Thank you.
One last question from me is, so our pod is obviously all about how do we crack the active code and get more children more active more often. So what one thing do you think our sector needs to do to make sure we can achieve that?
I think it's placing the emphasis on being inspiring and engaging. Sometimes it's not about what you deliver, it's how you deliver it. So just maybe related to football, my background, I could go in and do an after-school football club. If I'm delivering a high technical session, looking at phases of play and penetrating in the final third, there's going to be one or two there who get that, understand the language, and will get a lot out of it. And then you get 16, 17 others who are disengaged and messing around, not inspired, not engaged, don't want to come back next week, or we've got football next term in PE, don't want to do that. I just think like being inspiring, engaging, and biggest sort of like slogan for me is sort of developing relationships to affect change. So if you want habits to change, if you want schools to change their standpoint on physical education, if you want a child to change their relationship with healthy eating and taking part in sport, if you're inspiring, engaging, and you're a good role model, and you can build those relationships, you can affect that change. And I think that's where the emphasis has to be placed, because there are a lot of organisations like Progressive Sports or Aspire in the market. There's lots and lots of us, and I think if you just place the emphasis on inspiring and engaging, you stand out, and you'll reap the rewards from that, and it'll get everybody active and healthy.
Great stuff. Love it. Thanks, Mitchell. Thanks for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me on. Appreciate it.
Yeah, take care and speak soon.
Amazing. Cheers.
Join us next time for the Active Code podcast. Remember to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss an episode. You can connect with us on Twitter @aspire_partners and find out more about us and the network at www.aspireactivepartnerships.co.uk.